Hi, BookMattic lifelong learners. We've got a great guest here today, Jim Rees. He's the author of Vicious Cycle, which is a really interesting book. We've got a lot about cycling in there, but it's not just about cycling. It's about a whole lot more than that. Welcome, Jim, to the podcast. Thank you so
How are
much
you,
for
Matt?
coming. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
well,
great.
UK to Indonesia. Am I right in thinking it's Indonesia that you're in?
Yes,
Yeah, it
Indonesia.
is. Yeah. So a
Yeah.
7 hour difference in time. So
Mhm.
it's your evening, my afternoon. So yeah, it's a real pleasure to be here, Matt.
Yeah, thanks for coming on for sure. So can you introduce yourself, maybe talk a little bit about your book, and then I'll have some other questions for you that
Cool.
the audience can listen and watch and enjoy.
Okay, yeah. Introduce myself. I always find that an interesting one. How do you, who are you as a human being is a great question, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm a parent to 4 kids. And the book, as you've already read it, Matt, the sort of the warts and all, the whole shooting match of my life from knee high to now. And so that's 2 marriages, unfortunately 2 marriages, but the fortunate thing is there with 4 children as a result of those 2 really magnificent relationships. So 3 children from my first marriage, 2 girls and 1 boy, and then a boy in the second marriage, who's my youngest, obviously. So 2 girls, 2 boys. I'm a keynote speaker, so do the sort of the conference stuff around the world, speaking about people's inner greatness. So not about my accomplishments. I talk about the race across America and Ironman triathlons more as a sort of a background to me being a normal guy. And if a normal guy can go and do some of these things, then anyone else could, if they've got the right mindset, can put their mind to whatever it is that they want to focus on and achieve in their life, whatever it be. Not necessarily just athletic. It could be a career thing. It could be singing. It could be dancing. It could be anything that they want to do. Similar to yourself right now, you've aspired to go and get your master's degree. So it could, could be any of those aspects in our lives. So a keynote speaker and a one-to-one coach. So I'm qualified in emotional intelligence, which I'm really, 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 really super uber passionate about, because the difference that makes the difference in life is not our ability to be intellectual, like the left brain side of things and know logically how to do stuff. It's being able to match that with a high level of emotional intelligence. So have you got the emotional intelligence to then use your intelligence in context when you're interacting with people? So, and so the coaching piece is really important as well. So first and foremost, going back to introducing myself, I'm a dad with 4 kids. And I'm really passionate about the coaching stuff. And, when I'm not injured or recovering from an injury, then I'm cycling my bike or, doing an Ironman triathlon somewhere in the world. So, and I'm still competing now. So, I've got this year in May, I'm going over to Mallorca to do the half Ironman there. And then in October, I'm racing Barcelona, which is a full Ironman. In October this year. And in between those 2 races, I'm crew chief for a solo rider that's doing the race across America again this year. I'm doing crew chiefing. He's doing his first race across America as a solo rider. So I'm bringing all my experience from my coaching world and my experience from the race across America to build a team and get him safely across America, in ideally the top 3 at least. I think he is definitely going to be top 3, and potentially even win the race this year. So I'm quite excited about that.
I really had a lot of fun reading your book because, well, you talk a lot about the race across America, which I didn't know really about before. And that's what, 3,050 miles, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
that is a an inspiring feat that you explain throughout your book. And that's so cool, Jem, that you were able to do that 3 times,
Well,
if I'm
yeah,
not
four if
mistaken,
you
right?
don't. Yeah, no, four if you don't count the 4-man race across America that I did in
Right.
2005. So yeah, 3 consecutive solo races, which I was lucky to have phenomenal support from my then wife and family. So 2007, 2008, and 2009.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, most people spend 10, 15 years planning to do one and only ever do one, but I was lucky enough to be able to do 3. And I
Hmm.
suppose for me, the race across America is considered to be one of the toughest races on the planet. And I think one of the reasons for that is there are other races that are pretty brutal as well. The Marathon des Sables, there's a whole load of other things that you can go and mangle yourself as an ultra athlete, lots of running races, multi-event races. But the thing that makes this unique is the nonstop nature of the race. So you start in San Diego, and then you finish in Annapolis 3,050 miles later, and you have to finish the race within 12 days. So, on average, you're cycling between 250 and 400 miles minimum per day, every day until the finish of the race. And then, of course, you're taking your sleep when you need sleep. So most of the riders, well, all of the solo riders are definitely sleep deprived and end up with ridiculous bouts of hallucinations, and then all the weather conditions that you have to face during the race as well. So you're bombarded psychologically, physically, mentally, spiritually. It pulls you to shreds. But and that's the attraction for nutters like myself. And I know you're sort of more of a runner, is that right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah,
I
so
love running.
yeah, so and runners, anyone that's into ultra anything, or addicted, we all have addictions as human beings. So that was part of my addiction at the time. It was a blind spot in terms of what it was doing to unravel my then relationship, my second marriage, which is really sad, but that's life, unfortunately. And the blind spot for me was I was doing Race Across America and fully focused on the Race Across America, whilst my business was taking a bit of a downturn, for 2 reasons. Partly because I was so focused on the Race Across America, but also the bigger reason, I guess, is because the global financial meltdown was happening in 2008, and it really did, for small solo operators like myself as a coach, it really did knock the corporate training world for 6, and a lot of other industries at that time. And we've recovered, and then COVID's come along as well to come along and give us a little bit of a reminder that what's important in your life. So yeah, the Race Across America is quite a spectacular race. And I suppose the question that I get asked a lot, and I'm sure it might have been in your repertoire of questions this evening for you, would be, so why? What was your compelling why? What was your purpose behind doing 3 races across America when most people would be happy with just one? And for me, it was genuinely I was driven to inspire other people to believe in what was possible, and it genuinely is that. I'm not a Olympic cyclist. I'm an average club cyclist at best. But what is quite steely about me, what is quite, I've got an amount of stubbornness, determination, grit, call it what you like, but I've got a blend of that stuff that just once I get focused, I won't let go until I've got it done. So I was wanting to build a reputation, not to just do it once, but go back again and do it quicker, and then go back again and then do it quicker. So could I apply a lot of the thinking, my mindset strategies from my coaching practice into performance on a bike, in what was considered to be the toughest race on the planet. And I was lucky enough to be able to go back from 2007 and better my time in 2008, and then better it again in 2009. And of course, that being the case, 2009 was my best race. I finished it in 10 days and 20 hours. And that year I had 13 and a half hours sleep in total. So that's, in context, about an hour and a half per day over that 10 days, 20 hours. And that year I'd finished 6th overall. So, it was my best finishing position, and I think we had about 42 riders that year. And I was 6th overall out of, the people that come from around the world to compete in this ultra cycle beasting event.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's absolutely amazing. You must have to have that strong, very strong mindset, as well as a strong body too, right?
Yeah, I think the mindset is the big piece, and I've never. Some people might think I've downplayed the crew side of it. I'm not sure I did necessarily. I hope that I've given them good enough credit in the book. Without a crew, you can't do the Race Across America. What I was trying to depict was that in the book, and I'm not sure if I do really give it justice or the crew justice, but you definitely cannot do the race without an amazing crew. And each of the crews were pretty spectacular in terms of their commitment to, being there, supporting you, night and day, 24/7 until the race is finished. When the race is finished, they may not think of you in the same way, but they certainly will have had the most amazing experience, and those memories will stay with them for the rest of their lives. And that's true. I suppose that's life, isn't it? If life is about trying to create as many special memories as possible. And certainly the Race Across America is up there with memories, nowhere near up there with seeing your children being born, and you've got one, you've got a daughter yourself. So that is a spectacular thing that won't ever be beaten by anything, but from a sporting perspective, Ironman triathlons, but the Race Across America is, for me, my pinnacle. Now when I go and do an Ironman, it's sort of like, well, it's just an Ironman. It's sort of like 10 hours, it's in comparison at 10 days versus 10 hours. I can put up with the sort of the suffering that you suffer when you're in a race. That's a race, an endurance race.
Yeah, that is. But I mean, like when you hear the word Ironman, you're like thinking, "Oh, this is so tough." But actually, after you described this whole RAAM, Race Across America, I was just like, "Oh yeah, this sounds like the toughest race." So yeah, just reading through this was a very good experience, and I'm glad that I got a chance to read your story. So actually, what made you decide to write this book in the first place?
Yeah, that's a great question, Matt. What got me to do why did I do it? I think it was part cathartic. It's been ongoing for a long time. So I started attempting to write this book when I was still married, in my second marriage. And as that started to crumble, I think basically when the marriage did finish, it was such a shock to me, because it was such a blind spot. I didn't see it coming at all. I adored my second wife and really thought that we were it. That was this. That was us. We were. A lot of our friends thought that we were the sort of the model couple, and it just was one of those sad scenarios. I was blinded to the fact that our values were misaligned. So, and that was the thing that sort of the wheels fell off around that. And so for me, the book was very cathartic in terms of I had probably about 6 or 7 months worth of therapy before I went away. I went away to Brazil, and I had, I suppose, the ideal time to really focus all my attention on, okay, I'm in paradise, and also I'm by myself, although I was there to see my youngest daughter. but most of the time I was by myself, and I could meet up with friends during the day, but actually I could also get into a routine of getting my head round, getting some real proper structure to the book. And that's what helped me finish the book. And as I say, it was really cathartic in lots of ways. So a couple of versions ago, before the book got launched, it was actually quite gnarly. There was me picking through my view of what happened and then recounting what I thought my wife's learning should be from the whole thing, which, that's not appropriate because her view, her experience is her experience. So I took all that out of the book once I'd realized, I think it was cathartic to write it, but actually it didn't need to be in the book. And I'm pleased I had direction towards, you don't need to say those things. Someone that's reading your book will be bright enough to know that there is another side to the story. And you don't need to tell that, Jim. That's not your place. And so there were bits in there that didn't make the final edition, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So why did I write the book? I wanted to leave a legacy for my kids. So I wanted my kids to be able to sort of, at some point in their life, they don't need to read it now, but at some point, maybe when I check out, or perhaps later in their lives, when they feel the urge to read it, they'll then get a sense of what the old man gets up to in his spare time. But it was partly that, and also, again, I go back to my whole purpose. My purpose as a coach is to inspire other people to believe in what's possible. So again, the book, I'm hoping, will inspire other people to realize that, nothing's set in stone. If you've had a tricky childhood, or, not a great upbringing, or even if you've had a great upbringing, you still might be confused and not really believe in yourself. So I wanted this to be a book that could help people leverage their inner greatness that's always there. It's, so I sort of touch on it in the book, I think, a little bit, Matt, but not go deep into it. But I really do, through conditioning, when we're born, and I don't think I wrote this in the book, but they did a study about 20 years ago. They looked at 105-year-old kids, 50 girls and 50 boys. And what they measured was their self-confidence and their self-esteem. And what they found with these 105-year-old children was that 95% had high self-confidence and high self-esteem, which was amazing. And your daughter is that age now, and this is quite exciting as a parent to hear this. What's quite shocking, when I learned that they then followed these children until they were 18, and not followed them all that time, but they then re-interviewed them and re-measured their self-confidence and self-esteem when they were 18. And what they found when they were 18, they only 5% had the same high levels of self-confidence and self-esteem, which was quite shocking, really, when you can consider, well, what's gone on? Well, of course, we know what's gone on. Life has gone on. They've then started going to school. They then get judged by their peers, their friends, their parents, their teachers. They start getting told that they can't do stuff from either parents or teachers or peers or society. Of course, kids nowadays, social media is a big thing. So we're bombarded, these 5-year-olds are then bombarded with experiences that either boost their self-confidence, and if you're a great parent, then you'll be doing that all the time, or take away from their self-confidence. And of course, most kids, unfortunately, get bombarded with that inner greatness that was planted when they were first born, gets dampened down over time. They keep on hearing that they can't do this, they can't do that, and then they start believing it. So the inner greatness gets dampened down. It's almost like the light gets dimmer and dimmer. And really, it's our job as parents, my job as a coach, to shine some lightness on that darkness. I mean, my business is called the EI Guru, not because I'm a guru. It sounds quite an arrogant thing to call yourself. A guru is just someone that shines the light on the darkness. So as a coach, I tend to, where possible, shine the light on other people's darkness, create awareness where there wasn't awareness previously. So, as much as so I'm not some, guru as such. I'm just a guy attempting to, I don't always have the answers. A lot of the time I'm still struggling with stuff myself, so but I'm trying to make sure that other people are reconnected to their inner greatness. So I know it's a long answer, Matt, about why the book, but the book's purpose is to inspire other people to believe in what's possible.
Right, right. Yeah, definitely, definitely. And actually, Jim, I'm happy that you also included the aspects about your marriages as well. Like, to be honest, yeah, I enjoyed reading that. I learned a lot from it because I noticed that, yeah, you were like totally focused on RAM, and yeah, other things kind of like fell apart a little bit, right? So that's something that all of us could really learn from. And yeah, you including those aspects definitely helped to make the book come to life. Like I could feel your soul in the book, like
Oh
I
yeah.
feel like you did spend a whole lot of time planning the book and maybe editing the book, and like, hey, which part should I have in here, which part should I not have in here? Like you really thought through that, and it really does show in the book. So thanks for doing that.
I wanted to, I thought, I needed to be, I needed to look at myself in the mirror. That's what a coach does. I ask other people to look in the mirror and look at themselves and see what patterns of behavior they're running. I knew my patterns. So by me sharing my patterns of behavior in the most vulnerable way I could, I was hoping to create some awareness for other people to say, hey, look, I know this stuff, but I still didn't know it. I still had blind spots. And I think that's what I'm trying to help the reader understand, that, I didn't deliberately go out and demolish my last relationship. I did it out of awareness, and I'm sort of holding my hand up and saying, you know what, I messed up. I didn't get it right. There's a number of decisions I'd do differently if I had it again, but unfortunately it is what it is. That was my path, and I've just got to accept it. I'm gutted that I upset, people that were close to me, but I was operating out of awareness. I was so steely focused. So yeah, I'm hoping that other people can maybe learn from some of that, and also forgive me for being out of awareness when I should have probably see the readers reading the book might think, why couldn't he see this? But even, and you just don't, because it's a blind spot. If I asked people that are listening to this podcast, what are your blind spots? It's a great question I ask as a coach, to people that I'm working with. You can't answer that question. People don't know their blind spots because they're blind. And that's exactly, I had blind spots as well, and,
Yeah.
So going back to the whole point about the book, it was cathartic for sure. And now I'd quite like it to actually just serve other people, to help them see that actually a lot of things are very doable in our lives. Whatever it is, whatever goal we want to try and achieve in our lives is possible. Apart from maybe sprouting wings and flying from a mountaintop, let's be realistic about it. That's not going to happen. But, other goals are very achievable. It's about a good mindset. If you've got a good mindset, carry on. I mean, I've just been listening to Will Smith's book on Audible, actually. It's a great listen. And he's very similar. His childhood was very military in the way his father used to run their family. But Will, of course, has continued to have phenomenal success as a rapper, as a TV person, and then more recently in the last 20 odd years as a movie star. And it's great to hear so many of the things that he talks about. I'm thinking, yeah, no, I talk about similar stuff in my book about being very focused and, determined and all these things, so really sweet.
Yeah, definitely. And like this whole aspect, like of not, having these blind spots, basically, like what has like self reflection or hindsight maybe taught you about the way that you're like making decisions now in your life?
Again, I guess, see, for me, I don't, for me, my true north is still my purpose. So my purpose is to help people that have got low self-confidence and low self-esteem. So wherever anyone comes into my life that's got low self-confidence or low self-esteem, if it's a friend of the family, I'll take time and spend time with them for free. I don't look to charge for that stuff. If it's a corporate, then of course that's where I make my money. That's my day job. But ultimately, my purpose is to inspire people to believe in their inner greatness. So that means it helps me make choices about what I do and don't do. And again, it's interesting maybe that's interesting for your listeners to hear that, but it's exactly, Will Smith talks exactly the same way about purpose. Purpose is the thing that guides us. And I do a lot of purpose workshops for organizations, so big global organizations, have they got a purpose? And it's about the purpose that is the thing that drives us. So for me, it's always the purpose. The thing that I'm more conscious of than, if you talk about hindsight, is the values alignment. And there is a values exercise in the book, as you know. And for me, it's about making sure your values are aligned with your partner's values. If you're in a relationship, make sure those values are aligned, or at least you're aware of each other's values so that you can then navigate towards each other as opposed to apart from each other. Mm-hmm. And the same thing applies, Matt, as well, of course, in organizations. If you're working for an organization and your values aren't aligned with their values, it's going to unravel at some point. Otherwise you're bending yourself out of shape working for an organization that you don't believe in.
Yeah.
So the values thing is big for me. And ultimately, I talk about built for greatness, and, my purpose is to inspire people to believe in their inner greatness. The other thing that I think, and I'm not sure whether you really, can't remember whether you commented on it or not, but for me, the metaphor of the fingerprint is the critical piece for every human being on the planet. If everyone on the planet could get the metaphor of the fingerprint, get it, i.e. it's in their DNA, it's part of how they operate as a human being. So the fingerprint metaphor is, if I had a glass of water, every time I pick the glass of water up, I leave my fingerprint on it. Now, depending on how emotionally intelligent I am as a human being, I'll either deliberately, if I'm really emotionally intelligent, I'll deliberately leave a positive fingerprint in every interaction I have. So, and there are three groups. I talk about this in the book in particular. There are three groups that I think we need to be conscious of when we're thinking about fingerprint. The first one is the intimate relationships that we have, which is our family and friends. So, and these are normally the people that we take for granted, so can we be mindful and aware enough to leave a positive fingerprint in all those interactions? Can we be mindful to turn the phone off and be really focused on our kids when we're with our kids, or with our partner when we're or with our brothers, sisters, etc., and our close friends? So I think that's the most important group, because they're your life support system. The second group is the people that you interact with at work. You're spending probably, a third of your life at work, with people, your boss, your peers, etc. So can you leave a positive fingerprint in all of those interactions? And then the final group, as you know, because you've read the book, the final group is everyone else. When you go to Starbucks or McDonald's, or I'm giving away big corporate company names here, but when you're paying for the petrol at your gas station, can you leave a positive fingerprint in that brief interaction with that individual that you might not ever see again? can you leave just a smile or just a nice interaction as opposed to a neutral one? Now, some people might say, well, I'm not really bothered about them, but actually that's not the point. We're all brothers and sisters of this world community. And I just think, there's still wars and, a whole load of terrible things that we do to one another as human beings. And if we could jump on board this fingerprint metaphor, wow. I mean, could you imagine what it would be like if we all deliberately left a positive fingerprint in each interaction that we had? It'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, I mean, that would be my banner, I suppose. I really want to be waving that all the time, and I do quite a lot, of course. In the corporate world, I do.
Yeah, that was actually definitely one of my one of the one thing that I would like to touch on is the fingerprints. And I wrote it down here, so I'm glad that you started talking about it, because, well, now I don't have to ask that question. So I mean, I also would love to emphasize the fact that the fingerprint analogy was a really good one. And when I saw that, I believe I posted about it on Instagram as well. So maybe that's why you were thinking I had talked about it, which, yeah, I had talked about it, but not in this episode. But yeah, definitely the fingerprint thing is cool. I think you mentioned a story about, this might not be the right part of the book, but about like when you were going to the grocery store or something like that, and then you were like sitting there on your phone, and then someone,
yeah,
like,
for sure.
Would you marry me? I think it was, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, what a remarkable gift. A young lady. I mean, she must have been at least, goodness me, she must have been at least 35, maybe even 40 years younger than me at the time. This is quite remarkable. A young kid just serving on the checkout counter in one of our supermarket stores. And it was a lunch break, and I was doing a leadership development program. I'd just been speaking about the fingerprint metaphor in that sort of learning environment with 12 corporate big cheeses. And I'd come out for a break at lunchtime to go and get some sandwiches and stuff, and this young lady, she was click and I was busy out of awareness, completely not giving her any attention whatsoever. And she was saying, oh, do you want you can get a 2-for-1 offer? And I said, no, I'm fine. And I kept on typing away on my phone, answering emails. And then, as you say, she, after about a series of 3 or 4, no, I was just really, it was rude. I was terrible. It was just dreadful. I mean, I'm still embarrassed. I'm embarrassed telling the story now, but it was a beautiful gift, the whole learning experience for me, because it was a reminder. So she then, as you say, after she had about 3 or 4 no's from me, she then just said, will you marry me? And it was like such a curveball. It was so far left field. I wasn't expecting it one bit. And I just stopped and just erupted in laughter. And I said, oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much for bringing me back into awareness. That was so rude. I'm so sorry. And I said, what's even more embarrassing is I'm a coach, and this is what I preach to all the people that I work with. So it was a good slap in the chops to sort of create, wake me up from my stupor. And let's face it, we all fall into that trap. I'm not the only one. I know that. But it was a beautiful gift and a beautiful moment. I'm sure she must retell it in a different vein, but it was just such a glorious moment of, you caught the guru out, ain't being no guru now, are you, Jim? So it was really quite funny.
Definitely one of the enjoyable stories in the book, for sure. So yeah, is there any other advice that you would like to give today?
No, not really. No, I think, are there things that any bits of advice? No, I think we've covered quite a bit. For me, it's about the fingerprint that we're leaving in every interaction, for people to really, truly define their values, that if they're in a relationship, and if they're not in a relationship, make sure you know what your values are anyway, so that when you get into a relationship, you don't allow someone else to squash those values. I think it's really important. Yeah. It's interesting as well that Will Smith, I keep on going on about Will's book, but at the moment, I'm nearly at the back end of his book. He talks about, and as someone that's qualified in emotional intelligence, it was beautiful to hear him say this. He was talking about, he and his wife went to a therapy session, and the therapist was asking, okay, I want you to list down the things that are most important to you, each of you, separately. So they did it separately. And Will, then the therapist said, okay, so who's going to go first? And Will eventually, I think his wife said, well, you can go first, Will. So he started reading out his list. And on the top of his list, number one was himself. Now, a lot of people might be shocked to hear that you have to put yourself as number one. So you taking care of your health, your well-being, should always, and I would always argue this point as a coach, I believe it should be number one, because if you're not happy in yourself, if you're not healthy yourself, you can't then support and love your family 100%. So self does come first. And we talk about this in emotional intelligence. Self-regard is the most important fundamental piece. It's the cornerstone of emotional intelligence. And I suppose it's a bit like your own oxygen mask first. If you're going to have a plane crash, don't put your kids' mask on, put your own first, and then take care of others. And I think that's really, really important, because so many people have got the reverse of that. They take care of other people and let themselves go. And then, of course, when they're doing that, as much as they feel good about helping others, over time, they get frustrated and pissed off because they're not doing the things they want to do for themselves, which then, of course, is a dysfunctional relationship.
Yeah. So,
yeah, I would say that's probably the only other bit of advice I would say, is that you do have to take care of your own self-regard. No one can, I can't motivate you, Matt. I can't motivate you to do anything. You can motivate you. So we have to take personal responsibility for ourselves as human beings. We have to take, responsibility for everything, the whole shooting match. One of the reasons I wrote the book, I suppose it's just sort of dawning on me now, is that I wanted to write this book to say, I am taking personal responsibility. I've looked at myself and I've vulnerably shared my patterns of behavior that weren't on occasion weren't great. I can't bend time and go back and do it again. But what I can do is I can help others see some of the sort of the bear traps that I fell into, even though I know this stuff, or you would have thought I should know this stuff. But I had blind spots, and, they had consequences. So I want people to make sure they can avoid some of those traps and have a more fulfilling, loving, joyful life.
Definitely.
I mean, other than that, of course, you'll probably put the links to the website, but the website is I was saying to you earlier, the best copy of my book is the one that you get directly from me, which is via my website, which is theeiguru.com. And the reason for that is that, it's the hardback copy as opposed to the soft, the paperback version. And that's got the nice glossy photos in it, and it's got the and I can sign the book as well if it's coming from here in the UK. Other than that, it's on Audible, so it's also an audio book. And if anyone's interested in the coaching stuff that I do, again, that's via my website, the EI Guru.
Definitely. Yeah, I'll include those links for sure in the YouTube video people are watching and the podcast people are listening to. So definitely put the links so that you can click and get a hold of the book. And since you were comparing your book to Will's book, or making some comparisons, you mentioned earlier before we started the episode about Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. I'm just curious, just throwing this out there because I know a lot of people know about that book. And of course, a lot of people know about Will's book too. So maybe you can make a comparison to that one as well, just to maybe pique people's interest. That way they can get your book, because I feel like it would be beneficial for them. So, yeah.
Yeah, when you mean, I'm not sure what you're saying, Matt. I've read David's book. I've met David.
Mhm.
David actually introduced us, all the solo riders, in 2009.
Uh-huh.
And David got a copy of the book. So I don't know whether he's read it yet. But I know I got a letter from his PA, him thanking me for sending me a copy of his book. So, and telling me to stay hard. So of course I'm going to stay hard, David.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think there is some parallels between David's story and my story. And actually, interestingly, I don't really talk about it a great deal in the book, but a lot of ultra athletes do have stuff from their childhood. In fact, we all have issues with our inner child. It wreaks havoc on all of us as adults. In unhealthy ways. And I think, if you're seeing a therapist, then you'll know about that. But in essence, a lot of our work as adults is about trying to take care of our inner child, be gentle with that little child that is trying to get our attention, for whatever reason. So yeah. And I think David's book, certainly, he had a very traumatic childhood. It's weird because I don't really see my childhood as traumatic, but I think I articulate it well enough in the book to say that there's some stuff in there that's not particularly pleasant. So but again, it's how you handle that. It's how you lean into that one way or another, that shapes you.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. Well, thank you so much, Jim. It's very, very good to have you on the show. I'm glad that we got a chance to have this conversation. It's been going on for quite some time now, so I hope that everyone has enjoyed it a lot. I hope you learned a whole lot from it, and I hope that it has inspired you to get his book, because it really will open your eyes to totally different world, even if you're not into any sort of sports, cycling or running or swimming or anything like that. You don't have to be interested in that to learn something from the book. Like I said, it's not really a book about cycling. It's a book about, thinking, behavior, and the outcomes. I think you mentioned it right in the introduction. So you can learn a whole lot from the book. So definitely pick it up. And thank you so much, Jim.
Matt, it's been a pleasure, and it's been lovely to meet you face to face as well, which is really nice.
Yeah, face to face through Zoom.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah,
definitely. Right. Cool. All right, everyone. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you in the next episode.